Okay, so we're here at the west section, which is the original section of Huntington Lawn Cemetery. The east section's farther up Lane Street. In the background, you can see the back nine of Bronson Country Club. And as you can see by the leaves, it's early fall. So we're at Lawn Cemetery, the original west section, which was started in October of 1879. And you can see the facing fencing, which is the original fencing, which dates from that era.
You can also mention.
So here's a quick panorama, forgive me for saying it wrong, of the entire cemetery contents. And we're with the secretary treasurer of the association.
No, I'm not.
Forgive me, just the secretary and board member of the association. As you can tell, we're winging it on this. But anyway, that's Dawn Kramer, and she'll be on camera here in a minute. But Dawn, how many acres is this section, approximately?
I believe it's 3.5.
Okay, so we got a 3.5 acre main section for the original, and a lot of the people from Huntington whose streets are named after are buried here. And this is the first segment of a possible two-segment or multi-segment video, and let's look at a couple of people in particular here.
Okay, so here we are at the Hawley Monument, which you can see is quite a large monument. Most of the monuments in the cemetery here are much smaller. The Hawley one has your urn with the shroud over it on top there that you can see.
And what's the meaning of that? Anything in particular?
That I'm not sure of, but it is one of your older death symbols, if you will.
Very common in older cemeteries to have things like that, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
And Edward S. Hawley, who was born May 2nd, 1851, he is one of the 5 men who did found Huntington Lawn Cemetery. In 1879, 5 men got together and they decided that a cemetery was needed for the growing population in Huntington. So here's Edward S. Hawley. He was one of the founders. Interestingly, Jeff and I just noticed Ida Gray, his wife, she was born on Halloween, 1853, and she died New Year's Eve Day, 1917. If we come over,
That's the Hawley Monument.
that's the Hawley. And on further, now this is on another side of the Hawley Monument. You see Edward R. Hawley, who was one of his sons, born in 1877. He also became a board member at one point, and his sister Lois Bailey, she was treasurer for many years. I see her name in the old records. She was a treasurer for many, many years.
So do you want to point out, just as a point of reference, that this is a marble one, nothing in particular about this?
Are we on pause?
Yeah, on pause, yeah.
Okay. So go ahead. You can talk about this because you know more about this.
Well, I'll ask you about it, which I did a couple minutes ago, and then you told me about it, right?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start. There we go. This marker is not necessarily historical in nature, but there's a couple things I wanted to point out about it, because I know in some of my genealogy research, certain type of stones are preserved better than other ones.
That's correct.
And you said something about what type of material this one's made of?
This one's marble, a white marble.
And you can see that it's cracked and everything.
And yes, it has been unfortunately vandalized in the past, and we have had monument companies that have been good enough at no charge to us that have come in and tried to help repair it, but they are very difficult to repair.
And the final thing I wanted to point about this stone was, this is very common here, this A and E together, as the aged 65 years when he died, apparently. Charles Heald, H-E-A-L-D. Okay, so we're going to do a little walk through and touch on a few of the people buried here, some of the background stories that we know so they don't get lost to history. Forgive us, there is some construction on a nearby small bridge, so there's a little bit of background noise. And the first one here in the front left of the cemetery is Shannon Davis, who, as you could see on the foot marker of the stone, was a victim of Pan Am Flight 103, which is over Lockerbie, Scotland, just before the holidays in 1988. I believe she was a student at Syracuse University and was coming home, and I have a personal story about that. Okay, so a little bit of a personal story, and again, sorry about the background noise on the construction, but I was in Lockerbie, Scotland a couple of years after this happened. It was kind of an interesting atmospheric thing happened, that we drove through Lockerbie, and you know, in Scotland it rains a lot, but anyways, we drove through Lockerbie, and it was a sunny day. I think it might have been in May or something like that. But as we left the outskirts of Lockerbie, heading to our next destination, I kind of looked in the rearview mirror, and even though it was a sunny day, it started to rain in the background in the rearview mirror, which I thought was like almost a symbol of tears coming down. It was like, it kind of struck me very much that day when I visited there. Okay, so this is Carol Kish Bartimelli, right by the borderline of the front left part of this cemetery. I was good friends with the Kishes. They're from up by Booth Hill School area, and there was 5 children, all roughly our age. They were kind of in the late baby boomer generation, but unfortunately 3 of them have passed on. Carol had a heart attack. Their brother Ronnie drowned at Nels Rock Road, and then Robbie, which was a close friend of mine, as was Jimmy, passed away up in Seymour not too long ago. So right now we're talking, today is September 25th or 26th of 2019. That was about a year or so ago. And here's Herb and Gloria Fitzpatrick, my brother-in-law's parents. They were actually living in the house that's right by the swimming pool of the Huntington Community Center, and they had a barn out back that was like basically bordering on that property. And here we are with one of the Beldens monuments, and Eldridge, and there's Margaret, known as Peg Belden, lived to age 90, and she wrote a lot of columns, if you do newspaper research, in the Connecticut Post, then known as the Bridgeport Post. Society pages, everything that was going on in Huntington, like all the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, every little article. Sunday school, playground, costume events, so on and so forth. Just about every article you think of it, you could name it, that's been in the Bridgeport Post when you research it. So she documented a lot of Huntington history. Okay, so here's Frank Lilly. Dawn's going to talk about that a little bit.
So this is Frank John Lilly. I was contacted